Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Welcome back after a month-long break. Yikes! To the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. I am Charlie Carden, your humble servant, Trek Lord of West Michigan, joined as always by my number one, Mr. Peter Stein. Good afternoon, my friend.
Good afternoon.
All right. Well, yeah, we were off for a month, which is crazy. You had a business trip. April and I took a vacation, went to Boston, which was awesome. But yeah, that makes it difficult to watch because I think we both got back in time that we could have technically gone, but it's like I didn't have time to watch any episodes and no time to prepare. So, we want to come correct.
We squeezing it right in the end is like, no, we're not going to
push it. I mean, we want to come at you, a whole, and have some, some real programming and have some real preparation before we just, blah, blah. So we're going to do that. We have a great episode. Don't have new content to talk about this time, but we're tackling a documentary, which was actually made by William Shatner back in 2011. We'll get into that in a moment. And then we continue with this. We're in the penultimate arc of finishing the classic series in the format of quarter segments, which is absolutely nuts. And then we're going to be moving on to some different things, before eventually, much further down the road, it makes sense to start over again because when I started the show, Peter wasn't here. And so there are episodes we haven't talked about. I'd like to go through that.
I got here in season 2 when we were talking about season 2 of TOS.
So you missed all the season 1s. And then we'll have additional programming and stuff. But anyway, not to talk about all that. It'll come when it comes. We love having you here. We got a great show for you. Before we get rolling, as always, love to give homage to the wonderful folks who support us over on the Secret Friends Unite Patreon at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. All of our shows drop early over there. We have exclusive content. Like after this, Peter and I are recording for the first time in a long time, talking about Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica. We're in season 3. But that is you can only find that on the Patreon, and it's well worth it to tune in. Because we've got a lot of great stuff for you. We also got an exclusive channel over on our Secret Friends Unite Discord. And it's an easy 3-step, 1, 2, 3. Your first week is free. That's 7 days. Your first month is half off. That's $1 as opposed to $2 because you can't stay on board for as little as $2 a month, and that helps support the network and helps support us keeping this going. So we would love to have you over there again, secretfriendsunite.com patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. Sorry, I was doing this looking and reading to move on to the next thing, but boy, I got to dust the rust off. It's been a crazy week for work, but man, I'm always glad to be back talking about Star Trek. So anyway, we've got a couple of different news stories to talk about. Everybody in the known universe loves Lego. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I had a brush with Lego once, which I didn't love it so much because I helped a former friend sell off her ex-husband's Legos, and it got to be like, I can't believe anybody would buy this many of them because I see how expensive they are. Now I'm grappling with, and I showed this to April immediately. I think I got the link on Wednesday or Thursday. And I sent it to April, and she's like, all right, so
expensive.
This is what you want for Christmas, right? And I'm like, I guess, but still in conversation, but a deal has been reached with the fine folks, and Lego's from Sweden, right? I was going to Sweden or Norway.
Yeah.
Is that Swedish?
Mm-hmm.
The fine folks in Sweden, though, I'm sure it's run out of the U.S. With an announcement that was done by a live stream event done by Jonathan Frakes, a friend of the show, someone that we've had over on the Spotlight, for the very first Star Trek Lego in the history of forever. And I, for one, am very excited that it is not what you would expect. It's not, it's the TOS Enterprise, which personally, it's not a ship I absolutely adore, but it is one of the most recognizable things in all of pop culture. No, they decided to go with something that speaks a lot more to me personally, because I'm a Gen Xer and I grew up watching the show. The Enterprise D, NCC 1701D from Star Trek The Next Generation, will be arriving on Black Friday. Now, this is a big big set of, I'm scrolling to see how many pieces we're dealing with.
1,300 pieces.
1,400. I'm scrolling. Where does it say that? Yeah. There's the box. Yeah. Oh, actually, I'm down to the pre-order, but so it is the Enterprise D coming on a stand. Oh, there's the box. 3,600 pieces.
Okay.
That's quite a bit more.
Yeah.
But it's big. It's big. And it comes with 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 figures. It comes with
the entire cast.
It's the entire cast, swapping out Guinan for Tashiar, which, I think Tashiar technically had more appearances because Guinan was a recurring character, but Tash was only in the first season. But yeah, you get all the, and then you get Wesley, who was a regular for basically half of the show.
And this is Wesley in his season 2 outfit, I think.
Season 1. No,
season 1, because it's the multicolor,
Yeah, so which is funny because, so that does make the characters kind of a mismatch because you've got Worf you have Geordi Worf, Troy, Data with Spot, which April was quick to point out. She's very excited about. Mm-hmm. Picard, Riker, Guinan, as I mentioned, Dr. Beverly Crusher, and then Wesley appearing shorter than the rest of them. But it's a weird mismatch because Worf dresses as he might appear, kind of in probably season 3, 4, because the hair is a little longer right now.
It's the shoulder hair.
We're really picking nits here. I get that.
Yeah.
But all of the other characters, I mean, they're in. It's just a block, so you don't see. Do they have a collar? Do they not have a collar? Geordi's uniform was gold after season 2. Troy's lavender jumpsuit, I think that showed up in season. Maybe that was. I think that was season 3.
3.
Yeah. So it's weird. Guinan was a character in season 2.
It might be too, because I think she was wearing it in The Child.
Okay. I think it was a darker one. This is a lighter one. But anyway, okay, we'll dial off the nitpicking. It doesn't really matter. They come with a ton of accessories. We got pads and cases. Riker has his trombone. And then Wesley has like a science. Oh, you know what it is? It's that thing. Unit. It's the anti-grav unit from the Naked Now, which was the second episode of the series. Wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Wasn't that what it was? Yeah. Guinan has one of her famous drinks. It is green. So what's exciting about this, again, 3,600 pieces. That's 9 figures. And if you order, join the live stream, which we didn't do, and you get a chance to have a set signed by Frank.
If you order it within the first 3 days of it being released, you can get an extra set, which is the Onizuka Type 15 shuttle pod with Ensign Rolaren.
No.
Which makes it extra like, oh man, because Rose one of my favorite characters.
And to put the cherry on top, to potentially scare the crap out of everybody, but you know what, we got to shoot from the hip. Retail prices, €39.99, 300. Oh yeah, 379, 350,
399.
Yeah, that's GDP, and then it's
£369, I think.
Yeah, and 399 USD. Yeah, 3,600 pieces, and with the bonus that comes with the, as you said, the shuttle pod and the Rolaren. I missed that Rolaren piece, I guess, but
I got a nice close up of her face. I mean, they said that's what it was, but you can see the earring on the side of the.
You're right.
Head, and
I can see
pretty
it now.
Neat.
So, Peter, are you going to take the shot? This is almost as much as it would cost to buy a Monster Maroon from the Monster Maroon guy that I plan to use eventually.
Yeah, I'd love to have it. I do. I'm one of the guys that actually got the Mega Bloks Enterprise D, and that came out back in 2007.
Yeah. Was that that was an overseas, was it?
Nope, that was here.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, Mega Bloks made the Enterprise D back in like 2006. So I have that. They also then made TOS Enterprise a little bit later. That one was really expensive.
Right. I remember hearing about that.
Actually, fun fact for those who didn't know, there was a German company called Blue Bricks that had the rights to all of Star Trek for a little while, and they made a whole bunch of these, and they were actually pretty neat.
Yeah.
And they made like all of the ships.
Oh my gosh. It was like Eagle Moss. Hopefully
it was insane. It was really cool.
Right.
This is one that I'm going to have to think about because it's an awesome set. Love the fact that there's the minifigures.
Yeah.
The shuttle pod is really cool. I just don't know if I can swing it.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And then again, this drops on Black Friday, which is traditionally the day after Thanksgiving, at least here in the United States. But it makes it not a lot of time to plan for it if you are like, well, I got to move some money around or whatever it is. So I get it. April makes it sound like she wants to get it for me. So I don't know. I also have other figure pre-orders that I have like lined up for the Marvel stuff that I might slide around or cancel. I don't know, because it seems pretty great. And April loves to build Legos. Believe it or not, this is something that she would enjoy building as much as I would enjoy seeing the end result, because I'm a mess with this kind of shit. I suck at it.
I mean, I'm one of the guys that like looks at these really expensive sets. I'm like, I would love to build it. It's huge. It would take me a long time, and it would just be an enjoyable experience. Like when they released, also $400, the Lord of the Rings Barad-dûr, which is the Tower of Sauron.
Oh, okay. So that's the monster set.
It's huge. Or the Venator class Star Destroyer, like also about the same amount, also similar piece count, also massive, lots of fun. But the other problem is, I don't know where to put it.
Yeah,
I built it.
I'm not sure, and I wouldn't want to put it down here in the studio because I'd love us to be able to appreciate it. But then, we have the 3 cats; they get into stuff, so it would have to be high up enough that they wouldn't get into it. But anyway, it's semantics.
My Enterprise, my Mega Bloks one sits on top of a bookshelf across from my lofted bed. So I get to look at the Enterprise when I wake up every day.
Well, there you go. But that's something that's very enjoyable. So anyway, that's out there. You'll be able to get that. I assume I navigated away from the window, but I'm assuming that is probably going to be purchasable from the Lego
the Lego web store. Yep.
Yeah, Lego Insiders. It says, membership. It says, the reveal, blah, 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 Black Friday.
Lego memberships are free, so you can just log on and get it on the website, and there you go.
Yeah. So. Awesome. Very good. It's good stuff. And like I said,
I've been on Lego for a long time.
And this one got the gold stamp from our personal friend, Jonathan Frakes. Not really a personal friend, but it's somebody that we had the pleasure of talking to, and we'll hopefully be able to talk to again in the future. I know, look forward to seeing him on the cruise. But anyway, all right, let's move on to some not toy related news. And this is kind of it's a controversial one for some people. It's a relief for some people. We're going to try. Hopefully,
Peter will agree. It is a mixed bag of emotions.
We're gonna try to appreciate it with respect to people who may be very made sad by this movie, but by this news. So obviously, there's a lot of shaking, kind of moving and shaking going on in the corporate world. There was a merge between Skydance Entertainment and Paramount, which changed a lot of things. There's potential mergers with Paramount and Warner Brothers, which could change a lot of things, or Netflix and Warner Brothers. There's a lot of news going back and forth. We're not going to talk about that. But we will talk about is that Paramount is reportedly wanting a fresh take for Star Trek on the big screen. And they're moving on from the Kelvin JJ verse timeline, which gave us 3 movies about Star Trek in 2009, 2013, and
a decent comic run.
And a decent comic run, to be and to be honest with you, this might surprise you. I read the entirety of the comic run. I did, because it was at a time when there was not Star Trek on TV to watch, so it was a way that I got my fix. Because
I think they're still making some. I think
they not for the Kelvin ones.
They not? Maybe it was
they're focused on
the last 2 years, because I seem to remember there were a couple like 2 years ago or something.
IDW has a license, and we talked to Heather Antos a number of months back. She's involved. She's the group coordinator for IDW Star Trek Comics. But what they're publishing is basically they publish kind of around the Kelvin news. So there's currently a Voyager miniseries. There's been an ongoing Defiant miniseries starring characters from the Legacy era, including Cisco and Worf and Blana Torres. There's a Red Shirts comic right now, which is based around TOS Red Shirts and Team of It. So, and then there's a recent comic, which is the return of James Kirk.
Last Starship,
Yeah, so it's definitely, but to my knowledge, it's been a while, but I could be wrong. And if you're listening and tell me, no, there's a comic, you missed it. But anyway, those films, which starred Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, a pre MCU Zoe Saldana, were a mixed bag of emotions is a great way to describe it. And that might end up being the name of this episode, because I don't think that's bad at all. For those of us, we'll start with the positives. although she's not a podcast listener, Jordan, who is a friend of ours from the Star Trek fan club here locally, she's also active on our Discord. This is how she discovered Star Trek. She's told us on a number of occasions. And you know what? I appreciate that. In 2009, we were 4 years after the cancellation of Star Trek Enterprise. Star Trek, it was a Star Trek desert that was unlike anything that had been seen since the 1970s. You know, there was nothing in sight. Nobody was talking about doing a new show. So they came out with this. It was a very different take on what you say. And again, they also set themselves up in a separate continuity, which gave them some room to move some stuff around. The tone of it for people like Peter and myself, who liked their Star Trek the way it was a very different take. It was a little bit more slapdash. It was a little over sexualized. It was a little too actiony. It was focusing on what am I looking for? It was more of a lack of substance. It was more flash. It was more sizzle than steak, which is an expression I love. You know what I mean? There was all of the things that we've talked about on this show with the myriad of our different. I remember our co-host Jen Watson, who was with us for a number of years, always talked about if Star Trek is missing the moral message or if we do this a certain way, what does it really mean for us? It loses what makes it special. And I personally feel like that's maybe what was missing here. That first entry was very exciting, did well at the box office. They came back with what most all people consider to be a very weak sequel, where they reinvented the origin of Star Trek's greatest villain, which would be Khan. And we've talked about all these movies in this show. Feel free to Google it if you really want our takes. And then their third film, which was not the third film, not directed by J.J. Abrams, who directed the first two, because he had moved on to Star Wars, which is really where he wanted to be all along. Was a
watch
decent.
The first one. There's a lot of test shots for.
Yeah, right. That third film actually seemed to tie the two continuities together because they incorporated some elements from the Scott Bakula Enterprise era and Idris Elba was the villain. Thought it was pretty great. But, in the last 9 years, they just can't seem to get, because the last film came out in 2016, they just can't seem to get their heads around what comes next. Are we going to do Origin of the Federation? Are we going to do a Romulan War, which actually is kind of one and the same? But you've got this new guy, David Ellison, like him or don't like him, we're not talking about that, who says that Star Trek on the big screen is a priority, but his priority is not moving back with this cast. And let's face it, I mean, the first film in 2009 had a very small role from a pre-MCU actor, Chris Hemsworth, who became Thor. They're not going to get him back with Paramount money. I don't think they're going to get a lot of these people back with what I'm sure, because
most of these definitely they can't afford a lot of these folks anymore.
Right. Well, they certainly can't afford them all together. So, one of their casts, Anton Yelchin, died very tragically in an accident a few years back. So you're down one anyway. So they'd be reinventing a bunch of the wheel. You're not coming back full strength with the cast you had, which is difficult when you're making a sequel. You're trying to build on what people liked about the previous film, and if you're missing a character, that makes it that much more difficult.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of goes without saying that this news doesn't bother me personally. I mean, those Kelvin films brought Star Trek back. And put it back in the zeitgeist. It put it in front of new eyes, in front of film audiences, which it was great for them to see something Star Trek. Maybe the message didn't really jibe with what we TV-loving Star Trek people dig on. Star Trek has had some great flicks, but I think you'll agree as much as I do. And please, listeners, hit us up on any of our socials. Drop us on at the mailbag, secretfriendsunite@gmail.com, and tell us your views about this. And it's funny, I keep looking at the camera while Peter and I are talking, even though we only publish audio, but it's habit. But I would love to hear what you think. But Star Trek has always been, and I've always felt this way, and I probably always feel strongest, as a multi-segment, long-form way of storytelling, even if those segments don't necessarily interconnect with a long, big story. I think that really did not work out great for Star Trek Discovery, but I mean, that's kind of our opinion. And it works out a fair bit better on Star Trek Strange New Worlds. What do you think, Peter? I mean, I know that we're a lot of the same mind when it comes to this kind of thing, but I think the Kelvin universe kind of did what it needed to do. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
it kind of acted as like a catalyst to get Star Trek back into vogue, I guess. And there's part of me that's like a little sad for some of them because like Carl Urban really, really loved doing Dr. McCoy. I mean, he was a
Yeah.
Trekkie before, and then it was like he was one of the guys who was super excited the fact that he got cast in that movie.
Right.
So I'm a little like so there's some points where I'm like a little sad that we won't see those versions of the characters anymore. Because I mean, we've talked about this. Like, it took me at least until the third movie where I was like, okay, I guess, okay,
Right. Right.
But I I think that it's kind of served its purpose. There have been some things that have happened because of how it did what it did that I think we need to continue to wean ourselves off of, particularly some of the action heavy set piece sort of versions of filmmaking, which is still prevalent, and it's not my favorite thing because you need to do the writing, and the characters are more important than the set pieces. But like outside of that, it's a little sad that they don't get to do another one because they revealed a new Enterprise at the end of the last film.
Right.
And they're like,
So they're
okay,
poised
like
to go
maybe
out
you're
there
doing
and
something else, and then
do more stuff. Right.
It's similar to like how like they were going to do a sequel to Galaxy Quest a little while ago, back in 2015.
And it's the same thing.
And then
now they're down an actor.
Alan Rickman died, and so they couldn't move forward. Like they were all gung ho for it, and then that happened, and they couldn't, and so it just fizzed out because there was like, we can't make this without this actor, and that's kind of what happened with these films with Anton Yelchin tragically passing away. There was just like, we now have this hole with a character that is very popular, and so we don't want to recast. We can't figure out how to write him out in a way that's dignified, and so we're just going to hold off for a while. And then that hold off for a while just kept getting longer and longer and longer and longer, and now we're just at the point where it's like they're a lot older, so it doesn't make sense doing like the new fresh crew, even though in Beyond we were getting a similar story of like, I'm over my career sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know what else they would do in a way that hadn't been done, rather than just like rehashing another TOS story. And that's, I think, like where we kind of sit is like, do something different. Prequels are nice and all, in my opinion, as long as you stick closely to what's happened, because I like to see the details. Other than that, why are you doing it?
If it's not enhancing the story that happened after it chronologically, then why
rewrite? Just fill in, and then but other than that, go forward and do something in a place that we haven't seen before.
Right.
So usually that means the future. So I mean, maybe we'll see some of these characters in crossovers, like, time travel weirdness at some point.
Yeah.
Which would be totally fine. But
absolutely.
I just don't think I don't think that we're ever gonna see them all together unless it's like some big secret 60th anniversary thing that we don't know about yet.
Right.
So,
which, again, and the news reports around that have said it's doubtful, because to get a movie out in less than 12 months.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, some people have like managed to keep things under wraps for a long time and been very sneaky about it. Paramount is not known for that. So
but could be.
I don't think that that'll happen, but you never know. So.
Absolutely correct. Well, cool. Well, definitely hit us up on any of our Secret Friends Unite socials on all the big platforms, or certainly again at secretfriendsunite@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. If we're totally off base, if you've got a wonderful memory of those Kelvin universe films, we'd love to hear about it. Again, I've always maintained that entertainment is here for everybody. Don't yuck on somebody else's young. We're speaking our truth because we happen to make this podcast, but we would love to hear. If you listen to us, we'd love to hear from you. All right, let's keep her rolling and move on to kind of the part A, which is talking about a documentary, which, it's funny, I hadn't seen this in so long, I didn't even really realize that this was written and directed by William Shatner. I had no idea who created it. It's not a Paramount production, but it's called The Captains. He put it out back in 2011, and I love this. This is actually Canadian, which Shatner is Canadian. I looked up. I didn't realize. Of course, I knew he was Canadian, but I didn't realize he was from Quebec. You know what I mean? I thought maybe he was from, he was a big entertainment guy. I thought maybe he was from Toronto, or maybe he was from Vancouver, in the West. let my you hear my Detroitish Canadian accent slipping in sometimes when I talk about Canadian things. But yeah, it's a Canadian Star Trek documentary, which was written, co-produced, and directed by William Shatner. Screening was held in New York and Los Angeles on July 25, 2011. Shatner had gone to Canada, the UK, and the US to interview all of the actors whom at that point had helmed a particular Star Trek show or ship or franchise element. So at that, and to talk about not only their experiences in Star Trek, but just kind of their lives in general. Yep. And I was touched by how great that ended up saying. So our main interviewees are of course, Patrick Stewart, Avery Brooks, which we'll talk quite a bit about that because that was very unusual. That was the most unusual thing about it to me. Kate Mulgrew, who shines. She's such a star. Scott Bakula, who has such a special place in my heart. And Chris Pine. Don't want to put him down, particularly based on what we were just talking about. I happen to like him as an actor, and he continues to grow. He's a good
actor. It's especially as he's gotten older. To put myself in a box, the role that I've really, really loved him in recently was Dungeons and Dragons. That was such a fun
movie
role
was a lot of fun. Yeah, that movie was a lot of fun. Clips from all their respective shows and episodes were interwoven, and he covered some topics that he talked to each one of the main interviewees about. And archival footage. Shatner also had interstitial bits from the 2010 Creation Convention in Las Vegas, which is arguably the biggest Star Trek convention in the world, or certainly one of the most well-known. Yeah. One of the great bits that they had was a humorous kind of feature interview between Shatner and Christopher Plummer, another classically trained Canadian actor. It took me years to figure out that he was Canadian because I feel like anything I ever saw him in, he had a British accent, but he did it flawlessly. In Stratford, Ontario, which is an epicenter of Shakespearean drama in Canada. And yes, and there was also a notable exchange between Pine and Shatner, arm wrestling at a table just in front of the gates of Paramount Studio in a crowd kind of circling around them. So, all right, we'll circle back with kind of some fun information, but I'm gonna pop over to my notes. Wherever those happen to be. Oh, look, there they are. Yeah. But Peter, take me through what you liked about this documentary.
Yes.
Wait, before you do, sorry, and I skip right over to my notes. If we're going quote unquote full spoilers, but it's a documentary. I watched this on YouTube. It's actually available because I have YouTube Premium. There were no commercials, but it is available through the YouTube movies. But you can also catch it on Prime, Tubi, Pluto, and other sources. I saw it on Hoopla, which you get through the library.
If you also have Plex, I think you can just stream it from there too.
Right. And this is as of our recording, which is November of 2025. Okay, Peter, back to you. Sorry, that was a lot of yada yada on my part.
You're good.
Please.
I thought that this was a very interesting documentary. There are moments where it is genuinely insightful. As to how some of the actors approach the roles. I mean, some of them are stories that we've heard before, or maybe we heard them first here and then they got repeated regularly after that. Like, I think this was the first time. This was definitely not the first time he said it, but this was the first time I heard Sir Patrick's story about being strict in season 1 of TNG.
Yeah.
So I know that he said that a lot, especially since. I just don't remember if he said that a lot before then.
Yeah.
One of the things that really stood out to me is something that they saved for the very, very end of the show, which was the moment where you have Patrick Stewart and William Shatner having this, tete-a-tete, and they're just like, if I were to die tomorrow, everyone would remember me as Captain Picard, and I'm okay with that. And William Shatner kind of like having this epiphany, like he had it a little bit earlier, but like you could see like him coming to terms with this on camera.
Right.
You know what? I would be too if I died tomorrow, and the thing that everyone remembered me for was Captain Kirk.
Right.
I would be okay with that.
Was a role that brought joy and happiness to generations of people.
Brought so much to so many people, and like the realization of like when people are telling you like this character had an effect on me, like that's not fake. Like Shatner having this realization of like that's not people like placating you or being nice. Like that's genuine. And so I thought that particularly that through line through the documentary was really nice. Like everything else aside, and there's lots of other good things in there, but like that one through line for Shatner's realization that he actually has had an effect, and Captain Kirk is a good role that he had, and is a character with staying power.
Right.
I think that was a really good scene, through line in the documentary. So
I totally agree. Couple different things in all of this stood out to me. And again, we're kind of talking around this. This is something that you absolutely got to watch. But I am continually blown away because while I have not walked up and shaken her hand as I have with so many of the other Trek actors and spent time with them, Kate Mulgrew is magnificent to me. Just to listen to her speak, the entire story she told about how she didn't care about going to college. She cared about going to New York to become a real actor. And in the end of it, her great fuck you story about her dad, who is like, well, most actors fail. And you know, and I'm not going to, he says, I'm not going to subsidize that. It's just like, you can just imagine, he reminds me so much of my wife and my father-in-law, because my wife is a woman with balls of brass and was not taking any bullshit at that age, took no bullshit of any kind. And she left college almost a year, or high school almost a year early to go to college. She was so damn smart. But absolutely incredible. So I'm always confounded by her. She's one of the more powerful women who I feel like I've ever seen act in the genre in particular, and would not turn her off from any television program that I have to go by. If she's on it, I would watch it. And then, so that's a high point. The absolute lowest point of all of this, and we kept coming back to it and back to it and back to it. And I'm not, it's a low point for me, but it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with this person or this person's life. But I'm talking about Avery Brooks. Everything that we saw about him, he's just looks like he's living in his own mind. The way he talks, the way he plays the piano instead of answering a question. The fact that, because I dug into him a little bit on Wikipedia and other available places, the last bit of anything that he did was in the mid-aughts, where he voiced Captain Sisko in a video game. In the most recent public anything he did was a DUI arrest in 2013. You know, he's been married to the same woman. This is great. He's been married to the same woman for 50 years.
Nice.
And she's an assistant dean at Rutgers, and that is where I believe Rutgers is in New Jersey. So I think that's where he is. But he has so completely disappeared from public life. He's the only Star Trek actor that's living that I can think of that, with the exception of Jolene Blalock, who we just got back in Star Trek Lower Decks. But name for me another actor in the classic series who is still living that you don't hear anything from, not only Star Trek related, but even just in the entertainment. They're not in anything. You don't hear their name at all. I
don't think there's really anybody who's done that, where they've just like fallen off the face of the earth, basically.
Right. And you know what? If he's good and he's happy,
more power to him. Like
everybody should have that in their life. But it's just, when you take what is arguably the strongest role in all of Star Trek, which was Sisko, to me, and again, Riker is my guy. I love the character. But again, as far as someone who moved mountains in that role and in that show with Deep Space Nine, which, fight me, tell me there's a better Star Trek series than Deep Space Nine. I'm not, and you're never going to convince me. It's just never going to happen. But again, that's the beauty of entertainment. That's my view, and that's what entertains me. But to know that he's completely divorced from all of this, it does make me very sad. And he just seems so bizarre to me. But it was April and I were watching this morning. We're recording on a Sunday. We watched this, probably one of the first things we got up, and she was like, it's staggering to me that he's this weird and quirky, but the way he did that Sisko role, he seemed like a completely normal human being by our standards.
Very put together, very very
there was no
commanding,
weirdness in it.
very almost stoic, not quite.
Yeah.
But
And it's funny. I met Sirach Lofton, who of course played Jake Sisko on the cruise back in 2023, and we had some conversations. We never ended up connecting again because he's a podcaster on podcast. There was conversations about it, but it never ended up happening. And admittedly, I've not reached out again. So that enough of that is on me. It doesn't mean that I won't in the future. Sirach, somehow, if you an algorithm dumps this episode in front of you because I've said your name, please reach out to me. I would absolutely talk to you. But what this Wikipedia article mentioned is that the two of them, at least whenever that was written, do stay in touch, which I think is fantastic. Yeah. But that would be one of those questions I would ask him. It'd be like, talk to me about Avery. What's Avery doing? And you know what? Maybe he wouldn't. Maybe Avery's that private that he doesn't want anyone.
There's nothing wrong with that.
So I just feel like the only time that we will ever hear anything about Avery is in the eventuality that he passes. He's the same age as my mother, younger by a few months, which means he's in his late 70s. As many of these actors are that we admire so much that have been leaving us. And like I said, it's a two-sided sword because the selfish me is like, I would love to see the return of Sisko or hear something from Avery Brooks. But the other part of me is that everybody on the face of this earth has the right to be happy and live their life in their own terms, as long as you're not hurting anybody. That's kind of job number one. I've always said the prime directive of Charlie, that's me, by the way, is don't be a dick and don't hurt other people. So you can do your thing. You can believe what you can believe. You can love who you love. Just, do it without hurting anybody. So if Avery Brooks is happy and his life is, fruitful, that's great. It just does kind of make me sad.
The one thing is that he definitely looked happy where he was, just being at home, playing his music, doing his thing. Interestingly, there was out of all of the interviews, that one was the one that was the most relaxed and joyful in a weird way. Right. Because he was just completely in his element. He didn't have to justify himself to anybody. He was just doing his
at
thing.
Home. Yep. Didn't have to leave his music room.
Patrick Stewart was also pretty relaxed. That was I think one of the real that was one of the really good ones of the interviews that they had, because Patrick Stewart was able to be very frank about certain things, because this was back in 2011, so he had done
the
X-Men. Two or three of the X-Men films at this point, but he wasn't getting back into a whole lot of stuff. He was done with Captain Picard. And so
because we didn't see Picard himself until 2019. So it was a number of years.
The last thing that he did was voicing Picard in Legacy, which is also the last place we heard Avery Brooks. So that was a very frank. There was actually a lot of really genuine, frank conversations between most of them. The Chris Pine one was a little bit less. I think it was just because Shatner didn't know exactly what to ask him, because he had only been in one film.
Right.
So
as far as
at that point. So I was like, how I think they were actually in the middle of filming Into Darkness. And
I would think so.
That's why he met him on set. Outside of the studio.
Could be. Makes sense.
But it was how do you talk to someone, how do you approach the captain's chair when technically in the movie he'd only been in the captain's chair for 10 minutes?
Because that whole first film was not about him being captain. It was his coming of age story.
So it was he was there because he was the new captain, and so you got to bring it all together, but there wasn't a whole lot of substance there, whereas everybody else was how did your other acting inform how you took command? Kate Mulgrew talking about how you had to be punctual and on top of things, and you had to be the captain to the cast, and you had different interviews from Nana Visitor and Renee Asher Benoit and even Jonathan Frakes, where they would say the captain kind of set the tone for the rest of the cast, and so that was really interesting. I thought it was funny how Scott Bakula, the only way they got him to do it was oh no, you're the first captain, you're before Kirk, you're not after. That was funny to me. Where it's I don't want to be the next one. The next one in a line is no, you're the first one. Oh, okay, I'll do that.
I'll get the front of the line, exactly.
So that was pretty funny.
There was a couple of things I really loved, kind of high and low. At the convention, you had a big bit Bill walking around. He walks up to Jerry Ryan. Oh, Jerry Ryan, the most beautiful woman in all of Star Trek, and she is a silver Sharpie, and she puts a heart on his on his hand. And then a few minutes later, he's talking to Sally Kellerman, who was Dr. Elizabeth Daner in the second pilot, which first episode Kirk was in. And she was also very famous for being in Robert Altman's MASH. She played Hot Lips Houlihan in the 1970 film, which, Peter, I feel like we talked about it before, but if you haven't seen it, please do.
I don't think I have.
It's exceptional. And he says, "Oh, the most beautiful woman in Star Trek." So it's like,
and then he bumped into
just so very Kirk.
A third person whose name is escaping me and said the same thing.
Yeah.
Like they're just kind of, they're playing on the fact that Kirk was a ladies' man, which I thought was kind of a funny little gag.
When he and again, this starts with Scott Bakula, but it then goes on to speak to Sir Patrick and then Kate Mulgrew as well about the rigors of the filming schedule and the destructiveness to family life. Mm-hmm. Kate Mulgrew was a single mother; she was raising two sons. Scott had two children that, being on Enterprise, I didn't think he came right out and said it destroyed his marriage, but it contributed to the fact
basically said that,
yeah, and and Patrick Stewart kind of struggling around it as well, and Patrick having the very famous story around Patrick taking the role of Picard is that he lived out of a suitcase for 6 weeks as opposed to going back to London because he didn't think the job was going to take. So he had completely uprooted his life in order to be a part of the show. So it's very big. We had talked about Christopher Plummer. I never really realized how intertwined the two of them were at all, because you see the two of them in Star Trek 6 and you're like, okay. I mean, they just right there.
The thing that I forgot that I thought was pretty funny was like him saying like, "Oh yeah, I was a Star Trek fan in the '60s. I was watching you when you were live on television."
Yeah,
and Shatner was like, "What?" But
right.
That was really funny.
Yeah, he was living in England and watching it. So, and I think Scott talked about how he became a fan during the syndication era, so the 1970s when he was in high school,
he was in college, so. And they were Star Trek was on at 11. Drop everything, we're watching Star Trek.
The last bit that wound down the film, and we'll wrap this up and then we'll give it a rating, and I've got kind of some fun facts about it. But the last segment that Bill did was to ask each one of the actors, what do you think happens after death? Like the big existential philosophical questions. And you get a long sequence with Avery playing the piano and making weird faces. And I was like, oh boy. That, as opposed to the fact that Scott Bakula literally says he thinks we turn into the Force after we die. He says we become energy around us. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. And this is staying clear of talking about anything related to religion, which is a must for me. But Kate Mulgrew talking about death is right there. It's right there in front of me. And then it's exactly what you talked about when Stewart and Bill are talking about what it would mean to them to be kind of the remembrance of, well, people will remember me as this. So
and I thought it was interesting how like the question with Kate, like we didn't really get her answer on it specifically, because she turned it back onto Shatner.
Yeah, that's what the good subject does.
Yeah,
ask a question of the interviewer.
And so we got this really interesting, which we've heard before, I think, but we got the line of him talking about approaching it as Kirk. What would Kirk do? And I know that we've heard another comment from him. I think it came out a little bit later, where he wanted to deliver that "oh my" line a little bit differently than what we hear in the film, because the way that he describes it's like that's not exactly what you hear, because he wanted it to be kind of like this expectant, hopeful surprise rather than the almost dread that we kind of hear in the film. But that actually kind of rings true with what Shatner then says in the next minute, where he talks about his own reflection on death, where he's terrified. And so you have these different points where you kind of have like this kind of hopeful view on Scott Bakula. You kind of have it's unclear, but it seems hopeful from Avery Brooks.
Right. Very unclear. Based on
some of the other stuff that he said, it sounds like he kind of believes in heaven, but I don't. It's kind of, with most of the Avery Brooks interview, again, it's kind of hard to tell. With Patrick Stewart, there was very much a focus on like legacy.
Right. True.
And so you kind of go from like super, super like positive everything, and then you kind of get to like I keep going because I don't want to lose all of this was kind of the final bit. And it was like, that's an interesting, we get like the whole gamut of human experience revolving around this question.
Right.
And I mean, honestly, only one of those characters has faced death, has died on screen. Like only Kirk has. All of them have faced another character dying in a way.
Right.
And I mean, technically, I guess Picard died, but not like whatever.
It was the death cheat.
Yeah.
They played the robot card. They played the robot card. Ooh, that could be a name for the episode too.
His robot cheat code.
Oh, there you go. You named it. Robot cheat code. Here, give me a second to plug in. All right. Well, while I'm doing that, what's your 9 out of 10 out of this?
I think I would give this an 8.5. Like it's really solid. There's a lot of really interesting information. There's a lot of really interesting conversations about like the history, like how the actors got into the role, kind of a little bit of what they brought to the role, particularly like because all of them were stage actors. And so we hear a lot about how that got brought over and how it affected personal lives and stuff. So there's a lot of interesting things there. There's not as much about the characters themselves, which is fine because that's not what we're focused on. We're focused on the actors. But I think I think there may have been like an extended edition or some extra clips that were around.
That's what one of the notes that I said. I didn't put it in the facts, but I
feels
didn't read that.
Because definitely watching it again, it's like it feels like there's more that could be said about various questions that were done. So that's why like for me it bumps down just a little bit, is like it feels like there's some insights or comments that may have been left on the cutting room floor just because of time.
And that's, and I addressed that in mine. This was probably a 9 out of 10 for me, so it's very similar to where you're at. But I think I liked it so much because this was about people, and it was apart from Paramount marketing or propaganda.
Like it wasn't trying to like look at our new film. It was just a reflection.
On the people. It was people talking to people, and I think that's what really made it special. But I kind of marked it down because Bill is just kind of Bill. I've met Shatner. It's good days and bad days with him. He can be really interesting, but he's also very short with people and kind of rude sometimes. I didn't really like it when and again, as much as I've talked about Avery Brooks, when he was delivering this keynote speech at the 2010 Creation Vegas show, he made a dig on Brooks, and I'm doing this documentary right now, and Brooks is all bippity boppity boopity burper. I'm like, talk about a guy that it's possible has some kind of mental health issue, and I feel like he was making fun of it, which I just and that may be my own interpretation of it, but it's like I didn't really like that. So it was kind of Bill being Bill was the reason for the point deduction for me.
I mean, he can't help it. He is.
Yeah,
Bill.
You got to be who you got to be. But anyway, from go to your Roku or wherever it is you look at stuff. Type in the Captains 2011. You will find this wherever it is. If you are a Star Trek fan and or someone who enjoys the work of these actors, this is a must
it's worth watch. And as a random side note, he used clips of this in his traveling show back in 2013-14.
Okay.
And so we got some little of the extended bits of him with Patrick Stewart, and he talked about how that realization happened. So like this did have an effect on how Shatner did things going forward. So it's not just a documentary he did for money. Like it did have a big personal effect on him as a person. So
that's awesome. Good deal. All right. Fun fact, in Shatner's 2022 book, Boldly Go, he recounts that he wanted to interview Leonard Nimoy for this documentary, since the character of Spock was technically a captain and captain of the Enterprise at one point, but Nimoy declined. At one point, Shatner was being filmed for this documentary at the convention that he shared with Nimoy, who left the stage as Shatner entered. Feeling that he was filmed against his wishes, Leonard Nimoy became very angry, and the two men left the convention without speaking again. After this, Nimoy would not return Shatner's calls, which is something Shatner regrets. Of course, we do know that Nimoy passed away in 2015, just about 5 years after that would have happened. So if that was their last interaction, that's really very sad indeed.
It is.
So yeah, I hate to hear about that. And secondly, music was composed by Andy Milne, who commented, for many years I had been performing with actor Avery Brooks, who was a singer and pianist. When William Shatner was making this documentary that he made that I scored for him and called it The Captains, he was doing interviews with all the actors that succeeded him in captain roles on all the franchises. His interview with Avery was very much built around music, but it was improvisational. The two of them sitting at the piano, talking, singing, and joking. I guess Shatner had a conversation with Avery about music, and Avery said, "I've got your guy." So it was a referral. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of fun.
yeah. So yeah, I would say, we did have a comment. As I said, April had several comments. She said, I liked it, but it's obvious he, Shatner, made it in such a way that he would feature himself above the rest of them, which is very on brand for Bill. That is quite correct. So, but yeah, go ahead and check that one out. It is definitely worth your time. Okay. Star Trek Voyager season 7, part 3. I just find it hard to believe that we're not going to be talking about episodes in this fashion.
I know.
After this. And the thing I really wanted to do, and I don't, unless something radical happens, I don't see this to be the case, is that in our next episode, we'll talk about the end of the series. And I wanted to, as we did with TNG and with DS9, to jump into talking about the retrospective documentary to the voyage, or to the journey, which was rumored to come out this year, but I feel like it's not going to. So we're going to have to push that one off. So unless we get news from a certain pair of individuals that you and I will be talking to, hopefully in a couple of days here, but I don't want to jinx it.
No spoilers.
And we might, we might have the inside track on that one, but anyway, we'll jump in, and I'll do episode 14 because I actually had a conversation with one of the writers of this episode about this, and it's not going to be hard to figure out who that person is. Yeah. But episode 14 of the series is called Prophecy, directed by Terry Wendell, story by our own friend of the show, Larry Nemechek, J. Kelly Burke, Raph Green, and Ken Biller. Teleplay by Mike Sussman and Phyllis Strong. Mike Sussman, of course, went on to be on Star Trek Enterprise, which that is of kind of note right now with a lot of the proposed talk of the Star Trek United, which is kind of like, people talking about Star Trek Legacy coming around. It was one of those would be nice. This is from February of 2001. Voyager encounters an ancient Klingon battlecruiser. The Klingon on board it had set out generations prior to find their savior, and they now believe it's Tom and B'Elanna's unborn child. Awkward. So she's the female Klingon Jesus, I guess. We've got a Klingon Pope because we've got
Kahless, the clone.
We got Kahless. He's still doing his thing. But yeah, Larry, I had chatted with Larry about this one. I don't have the chat in front. We just did it on chat. He said this was an early pitch that had evolved its way forward and then was picked up to run. Because I was asking him some questions about it. And I'm like, all right, Larry, I didn't realize you wrote on this. Like, when did they launch? And I said, well, we didn't really pin it down, but it was obviously in the TOS era. But if you look at the Klingons' outfits in this, and if you look at the style of the D7 or the Katinga class cruiser, you realize that it's probably sometime during the TOS film era, because that
looks like it's probably around Wrath of Khan.
I would think so. But anyway, what'd you think of the episode? How'd you like it?
I thought that this was an interesting episode. I think it was kind of cool that it was hey, let's bring some Klingons back in and reuse some of that makeup, which they kind of do. They've done a couple times this season. Yeah. It's just like, we have these costumes moldering in these closets. Let's pull them out.
Moldering indeed, right.
So I mean, I'm always happy to see like the classic Klingon battle cruiser back and doing its thing, which they then blow up, but
Right. Well, they blew their own ship up because they
the special effects.
They pulled a switcheroo. It got blown up in the main sense of it. Yeah.
I thought that this was interesting where we kind of get another, a lot of times when we get Klingon cultural stuff, a lot of times it's focusing on the Klingon religion.
Right.
So, which is fine. But we get another detail of I keep wanting to use terms from other books that aren't Star Trek, but we get a Klingon messianic figure. Basically,
the Kuvamach. I remember this one.
Yeah, the Kuvamach, who's Muriel Paris.
Yeah.
And there's an idea that she's going to save the Empire, basically. Fun fact, Star Trek Online brings this character back and tries to use her to, like, bring the Empire out of something. I don't remember exactly how it works, but they do try to, like, make that thing. So it's interesting. There's obviously Klingons, some of them believe it, some of them don't, but they're kind of been fanatics living on this generational ship for, at least a century. So they're all slightly batty because they haven't landed and done anything in a while.
Talk about cabin fever. Yikes.
Yeah, they're going a little nuts. There is some pretty funny stuff where you have like Harry Kim, who has famously had horrific luck with finding a lady friend suddenly has a Klingon who really, really wants to
really into his
really
deal.
into him. And hilariously, like incongruously almost, Kim is like, nah.
Yeah, exactly. This is Starfleet Tinder. Oh, that could be a name of the episode.
And
I don't know.
Funny. So then Neelix hatches this plan of like looking like the bigger man and fighting Kim, and then he gets wrecked with the Klingon. Like, as we know, Klingon lovemaking is very violent, and so Tuvok comes back and sees his quarters in a disaster, which is funny. Because Neelix has to stay in Tuvok's quarters.
That's right, because they had to double up because they're like, well, we got to take all the Klingons in. They got to sleep somewhere. So Tuvok finding out he was getting a roommate, A, problem. B, finding out it was Neelix, like, oh, come on.
Yeah, it was beyond.
I'm the third officer of the ship. I can't get my own room. Like, we got to have a bunch of spare rooms around here for people who died, right? So, we've lost some people.
It's also one of those things of like, Neelix, you're not part of the command staff. You're a civilian. Yeah. I don't know that you should be able to like put someone in the third officer's quarters without asking him first.
Right. You know what Tuvok could have done? Moved into his office because he has his own office.
That's
remember?
True, yeah.
We've seen that set. So yeah, that would have been a solution.
Put a cot on the floor.
Yeah, exactly. Klingons have, or Vulcans don't have much consideration to physical discomfort.
They don't care that much.
You know what? Maybe
probably would have been fine.
Maybe that's what he ended up doing. So yeah, in the end of it, obviously they end up settling these Klingons on a world, so they don't obviously keep them on the ship. But yeah, it was a great story. Yeah. Got to see our friend Tom Paris in full Klingon garb because there's a duel,
which is quite funny. It's Tom is definitely more with it than Quark was in his duel. So they both kind of try to do the fish out of water thing with that,
right?
But Tom handles himself much better and actually defeats his opponent,
right? Exactly.
He's younger,
right? Exactly. What was Quark's line? Exercise makes me sweat.
Yeah, something like that.
Do it. Oh man! So yeah, great episode. All right, moving along. Episode 15.
Episode 15 is The Void, directed by Mike Vihar, story by Rafe Green and Kenneth Biller. It's teleplay by Rafe Green and James Caan, aired on February 14th of 2001. Voyager is pulled into a void where the ships that have become trapped attack each other for food and resources, aka Mad Max in space.
Right, exactly. We didn't end up seeing any of those big afros.
No, unfortunately.
Yeah, pretty forgettable. They had a guest star on here who was on another show I was watching at the time, and I always forget the actor's name, but he was on JAG. He was one of the lawyers on JAG, which is a show I loved. Black guy.
He was he was one of the Allied.
Yeah. He was one of the So there's allies and enemies, and they're fighting each other. And then there was one race that didn't have verbal communication. They communicated with they were like the Binars.
Yeah,
Fantome was Jonathan Del Arco, who was Hugh Borg. That's under all that makeup. Yeah, I remember that at the time. Pretty darn forgettable episode for me.
Yeah, it's kind of Mad Max mixed with like there's another TNG episode that it feels like it's mixed with. So it's I don't know. It's interesting, but it's not like, ooh, this is really cool. It's kind of like, okay.
Not a huge one to go back to. Like I said, the curse of 26 episodes in a season is that there's no way that
it's not bad. Like it's not. I'm not going to turn it off when I see this episode. It's not like.
We can't.
It's not like Sub Rosa or something where I'm just like,
oh boy,
it's not that.
Oh my god! But the day will come when we'll have to talk about it again someday. So watch out. Whoa. I remember we didn't talk about it that much.
Yeah. If it's a random episode and we have to deep dive into it, holy buckets.
Yeah, get all the notes around. But yeah, I mean it's a tough one, even, and again I would tell you because of my work travels and my vacation. That I watched this a couple of weeks ago, and again I have it on in the background in my office, so I'm kind of glancing over. But there's not like a really single jump out moment. The one moment is when the Fantome, when all of those aliens they're around the surgical bay and they're talking to each other using their their iPhones. Yeah, it's like. They're like, the latter-day Binars, but not quite as androgynously creepy as the Binars were. Yeah. But at least the Binars were interesting. I didn't find any of the aliens in this notably interesting. You had the one-dimensional good one and the one-dimensional bad one.
And then you also had the trash aliens back. Not the trash. You had one of the other alien races back from an earlier season who were also stuck in the void. It wasn't the trash guys. It was the
trash aliens. Oh my gosh. So for me, meh.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, again, it's not terrible, and there's like some interesting stuff about working together and not being a douche. That is like a through line, which is useful.
Right.
I mean, yeah, that's useful.
Yeah.
Don't be a douche to your allies. Don't be
right.
If you're struggling and someone's like, I have a solution. It's like, yeah, I'm going to be a dick to you and steal your food anyway. Don't do that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
So
do that. You know what? You know that. Don't do that. This next one, and I'll grab both of these because it's a two-parter.
Yep.
I actually really liked it. And it was a two-parter that was actually, this was during sweeps, and they actually did split it up into two airing weeks. So it's not like the previous feature length one that we had earlier in the season that was Holograms Gone Rogue aired on a single night. This was split up kind of like Year of Hell was back in season 4.
Yeah.
So this is Workforce parts 1 and 2. Part 1 was directed by Alan Craker, and and the second part was directed by Roxanne Dawson, our own Belana Torres.
Nice.
Ken Biller and Brian Fuller writing the first part and handling the story on the second part. Teleplay on second part, Ken Biller and Michael Taylor. Air dates were Feb 21 and 28 of 2001. Voyager crew is brainwashed into taking new jobs on an industrialized planet that has a severe labor shortage, leaving only Chakotay, Kim, and Neelix, who are away on an away mission, and the Doctor, who, in the absence of the crew, gets activated as the ECH, Emergency Command Hologram, no pips, to save them. So that's a summary of part 1. Eventually Chakotay and Neelix end up taking jobs on the planet in part 2 to try to rescue their amnesiac crewmates, who, of course, because they are amnesiac, don't want to leave because they don't know why they should.
They don't know who they are. So it's like, why would I leave? I like it here. Because it sucks.
Exactly. This was a super cool episode, two-parter. This is one of the better two-parters that had a decent amount of stakes on it, but we had two kind of cool guest stars in this. We had actor James Reed, who played the love interest of Captain Janeway's brainwashed character. Now, you probably won't know this one, Peter, but back in the early 80s, long before you were born, there was in the mid 80s, a groundbreaking miniseries called North and South. Ever heard of it?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Jonathan Frakes met his lovely wife, or was around the time he met his lovely wife, Jeannie Francis, on or around this miniseries because they both starred in it. But the other two starring characters were the late Patrick Swayze, who everybody knows from, and the other co-star was James Reed, who was the starring character in this.
Stupid question. Was it Civil War because it's called North and South, or was something else?
Correct. Okay. Yep. It was about two families, one from the South and one from the North. Two guys who befriended each other because they both attended the United States Military Academy at West Point, fought in the Spanish-American War. Or was that Spanish-American War?
No, that was different. Spanish-American War happened later.
It was at Mex. We watch it about once every couple of years because I own it digitally. It's fantastic, and if you wanted to log into my Fandango and watch it, I would encourage you to do so because it's a great story. And it stars more Star Trek actors than you can shake a wobbly stick at.
Nice.
And it's great. It actually stars Mitchell Ryan, who is Riker's father, and obviously Jonathan Frakes, who is Riker, in completely unrelated roles, but they both started.
I was going to say, are they father and son? Because that would be funny now.
That would be pretty cool. No, he's Mitchell Ryan is the father of Patrick Swayze's character. You really do have to watch it. Trust me.
I'll get to it at some point.
Yeah, put it on the pile. But the other actor, and he plays the evil doctor who is behind all the brainwashing, is actor Donnie Most, who was Ralph Malph on Happy Days. Again, I'm way before your time. Yeah, exactly. And what's funny is that Anson Williams, who was Potsy, the other of Richie's friends on Happy Days, I always swore to God that he was, before I knew about Jonathan Frakes, I always thought he looked enough like Riker to be Riker without the beard in the first season. Because I started watching the show, I'm like, hey, that's Potsy from Happy Days. He's on Star Trek now. It's totally awesome. But I thought that was really cool. That's the beauty of Star Trek, is that it just absorbs our heritage actors.
Fun guest stars.
Yeah, so that was but I really liked this story, and it really benefited from being a two-part story. So basically with commercial time, it's about 90 minutes.
Yep.
So it's feature length, because it really lets you develop the story and see how our characters would embrace having their memories taken away and thinking that they're other people, but also having parts of their own personality start to creep back. Like the efficiency expert in this factory they're working in is Seven, but she goes by her her human name, but she still behaves like a Borg drone because she's efficiency expert. She's like, your efficiency worker number 33612 is down by 3.8% in the last 48 hours, and you got a it's just like it was pretty perfect. Tuvok is brainwashed into a character that doesn't act like a Vulcan, so he's in a bar with the other characters laughing his ass
and
off at a
joking.
joke.
It's like it's the first scene you see him. You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly. But because of his the telepathic nature of the Vulcan race, his brain starts to work its way out of this abduction. And the way the abduction, it was kind of like a classic scam. This ship shows up and says, "Oh, you've flown into a radiation field. You're gonna have to leave your ship." And then and it was funny. They lost all their escape pods, which is a good thing. This is the last season, because at the end of this, they have to use the last 3 escape pods in a diversion to defeat in the space battle.
Yep.
So at the end of this, unless they somehow recovered all the escape pods,
not.
Which maybe they did.
Although,
they have
you never know, because they did get dragged back to the planet. So maybe there's
in the end of it,
somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, they're able to uncover the whole conspiracy of all of this. And so, maybe, they made pals with the government and they got all their shit back. I hope so.
You kind of have like the Law and Order detective doing his thing.
Dun, dun,
it kind of felt like that to me with that particular characters. We're kind of riffing on Law and Order a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is fine. And it might be because like I've been talking to someone about Law and Order recently, and so it was on my mind, and that's what it reminded me of. But it was just I was just watching it. It's like that's what it feels like. There's just a little bit of maybe someone was watching a little bit of Law and Order and like, you know what? What if we kind of sneak this in here because we got to solve it somehow? And so we have a detective who's like working against the corpos, and then they try to shut him down, and he does it anyway, and then they there's a big shootout, and they figure out what's going on. So I mean, it's a good story though, because you have all the different characters. There's hilariously a command struggle between Kim and the Doctor. It's like command hologram clearly outranks an ensign. Dude, you don't even have a rank, Doc. Like
exactly. And I could say nuke the Doctor, and you wouldn't be here anymore. So
there's
why don't you just knock it off?
Like a whole different level of just pettiness between the two of them, which is just hilarious.
It's pretty satisfying.
Yeah, but like the beginning is like the Doctor's trying to fix the ship by himself, and like there's some really just funny bits between the people who still remember who they are, like as they're struggling to try to make this all work. So even like there all the interesting stuff is happening on the planet, but there's still some really good and hilarious bits with the other 3 people.
Yeah, I like the whole interaction between Tom and B'Elanna's characters, because she's pregnant at this point, but really doesn't know anything about the how and the why. And then eventually she gets abducted back to the ship, and the Doctor is using her as a guinea pig to undo the programming, and she's kind of remembering things slowly. And it's kind of
neat how like she falls back in love with Tom, which is just kind of this nice little thing.
It's kind of hard because he's kind of a dipshit. No offense.
I mean, he is. Tom is a dweeb. He just is.
Yeah, big time.
He's a lovable dweeb, but he is a dweeb.
Yeah, absolutely correct. All right. Well, the next one is an episode that kind of marches us into one of the most infamous parts of the end of the series. So it's all yours.
Great. Okay.
It was my pleasure.
So, Human Error, directed by Alan Craker, story by Andre Bormanis and Kenneth Biller, teleplay by
our friend Andre Bormanis, who we just had on Spotlight. Exactly. Great guy, not knocking you, Andre. I don't want to. Hopefully the part that I'm talking about was not the part you wrote.
But teleplay is by Brandon Braga and Andre Bormanis. Aired on March 7th, 2001.
Had something to do with it.
Yeah. Seven practices her social skills on the internet. On the holodeck, which is basically the internet.
We watched it on the internet. It really is, unfortunately. It can be all the way up to and including the dark web.
I don't know why I said the internet, but it's kind of on point.
Because we watched it on the internet, or at least I did, and we're reporting on the internet, and this document we're reading off of,
and it's all the internet. And it's fake, so it's not real, so it's on the internet,
like the internet.
So but anyway, there's like the beginning of the episode is like, you see Seven without her implants, and you're like, what the hell is going on? And like it kind of goes, it plays with you for a little bit, and then eventually you figure out, like, I think for the longest time with this, I was like, is she hopping between alternate dimensions? Like, what's going on? And then at a certain point, it's like, oh, it's the holodeck.
Yeah, they cue
She's
it
pulling
up.
a
So
Barclay. Okay.
Yeah, that part of it is pretty well tread road. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
But like, there's some interesting things where it's like she's trying to learn how to be more gregarious, how to be more emotive, work on her relationships with people. Decides to have a romantic relationship with,
and that's when things tilt into the red.
Yeah, with a fictional, with a holodeck creation of Chakotay. Which why did she choose Chakotay? I don't
absolutely
know.
Out of nowhere. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
This is like, I mean, this is where it started, and then it kind of becomes a thing in like the last three episodes.
I don't know that it even really gets touched on.
I mean, it gets touched in Endgame, but other than that, I just don't know if it really gets mentioned other than that. I mean, we'll know more when we do the last like couple episodes, but
yeah.
I just don't remember it really being a thing until Endgame. Like, this was a one-off.
I mean, yeah, you can appreciate that they're trying to give Robert Beltran's Chakotay character something to do.
Absolutely.
They're trying to get him an extra wrinkle.
He's an interesting character, but
I don't see Seven with any of the main cast romantically.
Not really.
Obviously, in the beginning, Harry was like, "Oh, because she's a beautiful woman," and so he's like, "Well, I'm into her because blah blah." But that fizzled and became nothing. Tom.
I would have been interested.
Tom's
to see
married.
If you could get Kim and Seven to work, because you would have had to have like just purely hypothetical land for a second, right? If you wanted that to work, it would have been a very interesting dynamic, because you would have had to have Kim grow up, right?
Right.
Become more serious. Kind of what and this is probably why they didn't do it, because they would have had to take a very similar story arc that they did with Paris, of like, Kim would have to grow up, become a little bit more serious, definitely lose his starry-eyedness a little bit more.
Yeah. Ooh, but
then
the forever
but
ensign,
then also, and he would have had to get a promotion because of it. Oh no. And then
can't be done.
But then we would have also had to have him be very instrumental in the humanizing aspect of Seven of Nine, which we seem to, at least on the writer side, seem to want to focus that primarily on the Doctor and on Janeway, which is fine. But like, if you wanted to have that romance work, and that's the only like pairing that I could see work well, that's what you would have to do.
But it would require a
lot more setup. And at this point in the show, you're not there. You couldn't do it.
Right. And they're running out of time. So and like I said, this takes a quantum leap forward into the finale. But between you and me, it's not even mentioned in passing. Even though as expected with Seven, this creates one of her implants to go flippity flu, and the Doctor says, "Well, I would have to do this and that," because
she stops regenerating. It's like, Seven, you know that this causes problems,
right?
Why?
Exactly. Yeah, like lucid dreaming. So the Doctor says, "Well, I can fix it, but it'll take a blah 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 this and that." She's like, "No, I don't want to do it. I'm giving up on this. It's bad. I'm walking away from it because I let this take over my life, and it was an obsession." And character growth, maybe.
It's like
going back on the same trope of Seven had a malfunction, and it's like they've done it 10 times.
Yeah, Seven had a Barclay malfunction this time. Okay,
right. Yeah, so it doesn't really wow me. And like you said, the match between her and Chakotay, understand that they're trying to give more lifting to Chakotay, but he's not. It's only the only real pairing that ever really seemed to work was her and the Doctor. But they can't give us that.
And I much prefer Janeway and Chakotay anyway. I think that pairing works, and Prodigy showed that everyone preferred that anyway. So
right, and if we had our friend Ellie Littlechild from Trek Culture on here, she'd be flipping out if we were talking about. We will have to get her back sometime soon to talk about that. So. All right. Well, we'll move on to what's thankfully a very fun episode, if potentially lower stakes. Episode 19 is Q2, directed by our beloved LeVar Burton, Mr. Geordie LaForge himself. Story by Ken Biller and teleplay by Robert Doherty from April of 2001. Q, John Delancey, leaves his son, Q2, or is played by Keegan Delancey, who is his real life son. So this is now the second time that we've had an actor and their real life son engaging in being in an episode together. The first one being Patrick Stewart and his son Daniel. On Voyager to learn from the crew. So this is a fun romp of a Q episode, but it is played from the younger card. So obviously when we met Q2, the baby 4 years ago, he was a baby, but they're Q, so they don't age. So it doesn't really, he can be a teenager or he could be whatever. But because he's playing the teen-aged character, he's interacting primarily with Icheb. This episode, incidentally, gives us the actual because Icheb in the cold open is delivering a report on early Starfleet history to Janeway as part of his correspondence course to Starfleet Academy to become a Starfleet officer. But he does mention the year of 2270 as the end of the original series, setting its timing between 2265 and 2270, which is, of course, a matter of consequence for Strange New Worlds because it tells you how much time they got left before the show is supposed to end. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, it was a fun episode. It was a romp. It reminds me of, is it Q-less in season 3 of TNG when Q has his powers taken away?
Yeah, I think it's Q-less.
They go and when our Q, John Delancey, dumps him on the ship, he takes his powers away.
What can I do to prove it to you people? Die.
Oh, very good, Worf. Eat any good books lately? Yeah. But yeah, this follows that track. And again, it's like, oh, well, they're going over retreaded ground, but I don't mind it so much because it is technically different characters. It's a different show, and it doesn't feel like, oh, we're using the Q trope of him losing his powers. And also
how Q interacts with Janeway is very different than how he interacts with Picard. So even though it's very similar, the reactions are different, and so it is a different story.
Right. Agreed. Yeah. So I enjoyed that very much. Definitely a quality episode. Keegan, as I understand it, actually left acting not long after this, went off to college, and I believe he's an attorney who has kind of a laundry list of like international law accomplishments under his belt. So, but I will mention because I believe John is a guest on the cruise again, so I will mention to him how much we enjoyed this episode and how cool it was to see him interact with his son.
I mean that was also just really funny because you're imagining the like father and son. Especially when they have to have like their fights on screen. It's just kind of like, how did that work? Like that would be fun.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, also because we know that sometimes the Star Trek cast can be a little goofy, right? How much egging on happened when the camera wasn't rolling?
Yeah, right. Oh my God, especially with Delancey around, kind of a natural comedian. All right, take us home. Episode 20, our last one of this block.
All right, episode 20, Author. Directed by David Livingston, story by Brandon Braga, teleplay by Phyllis Strong and Mike Sussman, aired on April 18th of 2001. The Doctor writes a hollow novel to be published in the Alpha Quadrant, featuring characters who closely resemble but do not flatter the crew. Shenanigans ensue.
They certainly do. So we've gotten to the point in the series where there's like regular, at least monthly bandwidth time.
People get like 5 minutes.
With the Alpha Quadrant.
To talk to people at home.
Yeah. So Seven has a whole lottery meted out that people get to talk to people. Kim gets to talk to his parents, which it turns out his dad is actor Clyde Karatsu, I think, who also played an admiral in TNG a couple times. So he must have it must be his cousin, right? Yeah. Because everybody who's the same actor in a show franchise is somehow related.
Yeah, they're a cousin.
So that was kind of cute. I mean, yeah, that was played for laughs. You have a really touching scene where B'Elanna reconnects with her father for the first time in decades over this bracket. And I thought, as much as I absolutely love that episode, this was a nice postscript to the episode we talked about last time, which I'm going to draw a blank, Lineage, that we talked about last time.
This was a nice little nod to that.
Yeah, I like that very much. But the main story is the Hollow novel, which kind of reminds you of, and with a much less malevolent twist of the worst case scenario. Yeah. Or the murder mystery. Yeah. I was thinking, the worst case scenario from season 3 with Seska, how the Seska hologram ends up taking it over. Yeah. But you talk about the murder mystery, like the like the Strange New Worlds.
No, I was saying Living History, the other Voyager episode.
Living History,
where it's like the warship Voyager and Janeway with her Nazi gloves and crap.
Exactly. Yeah. The very severe hairdo. But yeah, because it is eventually discovered that the doc's writing this. He tries to defend himself. Well, I'm writing what I know, and the characters aren't really you guys. And I'm like, well, they look exactly like us. They have the same job, so it's like, this is
also
like really
you named them very similar. Like, it's not Lieutenant Paris, it's Lieutenant Marseille. Great, a different city in France.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, it has my parameters. He's a total scumbag. And, the B'Elanna character is super rude. And, the 7 of 9 character is, a total bimbo, which is not, so it's like, why are you, you're making everybody look terrible. And so he tries to defend himself. And then they have a big, in the conference room, they have a big come to Jesus meeting. They were like, look, you can't do this. You may think you're, not doing any harm, but it's very harmful to us. And we don't want people back in the Alpha Quadrant to watch this and think that this is not fiction, that it's nonfiction.
Yeah.
But then, you get the whole, the guy who was going to publish his book decides to do it anyway without permission.
Yep.
And then you get the big courtroom drama, which is held over like 3 days in like 11-minute segments.
Yeah.
Oh no, is it every day? They're able to do it every day.
Yeah.
They're able to have communication every day.
Every day, but only for about like 10, 11 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So they have this, and it's like, this should have been super easy. Just spend that 11 minutes showing them the episode The Measure of a Man from TNG, because it was the same shit. He has rights, even though he's not a flesh and blood critter. Flesh and blood critter, did I just say? A flesh and blood individual. It seemed like it should be that it shouldn't have taken 3 days.
It definitely felt like it was did we forget that season 2 of TNG happened?
Yeah, exactly. It was one of the finest episodes of all of Star Trek. I think that one won our bracketology challenge. Yeah, it did. So that was determined by a panel of 5 Trekkers to be the best Star Trek episode of all time. And I the reason we're not probably ever doing a bracket challenge again is that I don't know that the results would change that much. I think it's still going to.
I don't know if the finale would change, but it would be different. Who's making it their way up? So.
Yeah, very true. So yes, who's to say? But I love the postscript to this episode where you get, hey, back in the Alpha Quadrant, they described at one point that the Mark I still exists, but they do industrial jobs like you see at dilithium mine. So there's an asteroid where dilithium is being mined from that's equipped with hollow emitters, and the Mark I holograms, so they all look like Bob Picardo, are digging dilithium. That's all they do. And but by this point, the Photons Be Free Doc's program, where the whole crux of his holo novel is illustrating the struggle of being a hologram. It has inspired real life holograms. So, and I know that in the the not now non-canonical Homecoming novels that came out in the early 2000s, they continued the fact that holograms, much like we also saw earlier this season, rise up and demand their rights and all this kind of different stuff. So, so this did have a sequel of sorts, non-canonically, in a series of books by Kristen Bayer that I enjoyed very much. So I don't know if you've ever read those.
I don't know that I read those ones.
Yeah, that's back when I was really into. I'm really bad at really bad at reading books now, but back then I did it all the time. So it was, what it is? It was the proliferation of smartphones. That's what's got me.
Yeah, that's fair.
And streaming. Now all we do is watch TV. But yeah, no, I thought it was good, and I definitely enjoyed it. All right. Other thoughts before we wrap it up?
I thought that the moment where like Tom gets back at the doctor is quite funny and quite telling, because it's how they finally convince the doctor, like, maybe you were being a jerk.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like Tom basically does like this farcical take on the doctor's own program, but then makes it about him and how he has to put up with the doctor being a douche nozzle. It's just kind of funny. And like he gives the doctor like this really terrible comb over. he does all the same things that the doctor did, was like making everyone look like almost who they are, but somehow worse.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was pretty funny. I didn't quite like, and I know I said this when we were talking about Picard season 1. I'm never really a fan when it's like, here's the Federation who should know better at this point, and now they're doing something that is morally definitely not gray.
Right.
Like, let's put these holograms that we happen to know are probably sentient or are at least capable of gaining sentience very easily.
Right.
And let's treat them as like slave programs. It's like, that seems a little suspicious.
more than a bit sus.
So
yeah, no, I totally
so I don't
agree.
really like that. I mean, this isn't quite. It's not quite as bad as the beginning of Picard season 1, where it's like they built the androids for the explicit purpose of exploitation. Like these holograms were not built for that. But this is the episode that gives Picard season 1 a leg to stand on for having the Federation do that, and for that reason, I don't. Partially for that reason, I don't like that postscript, because I don't like that as something that the Federation does. Now, that doesn't mean the Federation is perfect and it can still make mistakes, and something like that could theoretically happen. It's just, I don't, it's not my favorite.
Yeah.
So,
no, I hear you. Yes. Keep your gray areas not quite so gray. All right. 7 episode block, or 6 or 7. I don't know. We had 2-parter. How about a favorite and a least favorite?
Let's see. A favorite. I think I might have to say, and you can't really separate them, but Workforce.
I was going to say the same thing. I thought it was the most original concept
out of everything,
of the block.
It seems like it's the most interesting story. Like there's other
100%.
interesting stuff here, but I think that's the one that that was the one that when I had it running in the background, I kept kind of looking at it because there's just interesting
precisely
stuff
I kept looking over because they did some different stuff, and like I said, I love the two guest actors that you'd be like, oh my god, really, Ralph Malph as an evil doctor? I mean, that was pretty great. So, all right, what about a least? The least would be a little easier to pick.
Yeah, I'm sure. For me, it's kind of a toss up, but I'm going to go with the Void just because it's it's kind of a nothing burger.
I think, and I'm sure it happens all the time. We don't keep track that you and I ended up picking the same ones.
It's happened a lot.
I mean, it really was, because it felt like it was no stakes. Oh, we're trapped in this void and they stole our stuff. But I'm like,
which we've done at a different point, but better. So.
But we'll get out of the void and we'll get all of our shit back, because that's the way the show works. So it's like, okay, we're creating a little dangerous situation that, like you're not really feeling any variety of stakes that you really. There's no sizzle to this steak. There's no doubt about it. So well, cool. Next time is we're actually wrapping this deal up, which is absolutely crazy.
And I think we're talking about Khan next as well.
We do. Yes, you're right. Our segment 1 is going to be Khan. I assume you've listened all the way through. And I have to find a nice, easy recap, because otherwise I'll forget. But we're going to talk about the recently wrapped up audio drama Khan, which was in part written by David Mack, who was a guest of ours not that long ago on.
Do we have a guest for that episode yet?
I don't. Why? If
I've got an idea. I will see.
I've got to play. You sound like, the Tommy Boy into I've got a plan. But in the meantime, listeners, thank you for joining us. Sorry about the long break, but life does happen. But we're glad to be back, and you'll continue to hear us on a bi-weekly basis unless something breaks it up again, because it does happen. Sorry, we got real life out there. But Peter, where do people find you out there?
You can find me around the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas. I'm not terribly active, but if you poke at me, I might say something. You can also find me on ELH's Twitch and YouTube channels playing Star Trek Adventures. And you can also find me behind the scenes on the fan-made audio drama Starship Excelsior.
Ooh. I'd love to get involved on something like that. I was just talking about it. So wink, wink, wink. But you can find me on kind of all the big socials. I run, obviously, Secret Friends Unite social medias across. We don't do Twitter/X. That's not for us. But you can find me personally all around all of those as at the C3 TheCeeThree on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and the TikTok. I tried to, and again, I didn't do a great job this week with being gone, but I tried to do 3 minutes or less on a topic of the day, kind of my kitchen chats. I'm sitting at the island in my kitchen up against my very colorful refrigerator and just talk about stuff that I'm enjoying. So I had a good one that I'll probably do later today about an animated DC Comics movie that I was catching up on that I've owned for a long time, but I'm never sure. It was a 2-parter. I'm never sure I watched both of them. So But that's it for the show. Don't forget, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite is the place to get all of our bonus content and early content. And if you have a thought about anything that we've talked about, if you want to espouse about the JJ movies, the mailbag is always there, secretfriendsunite@gmail.com. Write us a note. We'd be happy to use it on the show. And the same goes for any of the comments in things like our Secret Friends Discord, which I feel like we didn't mention, that we're keeping it going because we absolutely love to hear from you there. With that, friends, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring and to keep on trekking.
Peace and long life.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.